Lots of our friends on the left have been calling Trump a fascist. The New Republic published a piece headlined, "Yes, Trump is a Fascist." Madeleine Albright wrote a book about Trump called Fascism, a Warning. On the other hand, we have too many friends who call things fascist just because they don't like them. Historians, I'm a historian, mean something specific when they talk about fascism. They get a little picky about this. Mussolini and then Hitler ran one-party states that eliminated opposition parties. They had government-controlled media. They banned opposition newspapers and radio. They had government-controlled unions that replaced independent unions. I submit that the United States has nothing like this under Trump. Do you think we should call Trumpism fascism?
Well, I always would have said no. I don't like that word being thrown around because I'm kind of pedantic, and I think that fascism referred to a specific historical development that came out of devastating World War I, drastic economic upheaval compared to what we have now is nothing. The fear of Bolshevism was very big. And I think that, when Naomi Wolf and others said that George W. Bush that was fascism, and it was going to be just like 1930s Germany. And I'm thinking, oh, really? Did they believe that Bush would simply cancel elections and refuse to leave the White House? I mean, fascism also involves the army. You have to control the army.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to have your own private army. Hitler did that. Mussolini did that. So, to make a long story short, I didn't like the use of this word, and maybe it isn't the right word for where we seem to be heading. And one reason for that, people forget this, and I remember I was very shocked when many, many years ago an Italian friend of mine said, well, Mussolini did some good things for people. And for years I thought, oh my God, Vittorio, he's really strange. But one of the big things that fascism was always about was big government.
Yes.
Big government. It was jobs for the boys. It was building the Autobahn, draining the swamps of malaria near Rome, all that kind of thing. And American conservatism is not at all interested, as we've discovered, in infrastructure and providing work for people. So that's another big difference. And yet, now I'm thinking, okay, we've got Putin, we've got Donald Trump, we have Modi in Italy, in India. We have all those conservative parties in Western Europe. We have Egypt. We have a lot of what Viktor Orban of Hungary call illiberal democracies. They have the form of democracy. There are still elections. There are still opposition parties. And yet somehow things just keep going in an autocratic and authoritarian direction.
Well, one of the key anti-democratic programs that Trump has pursued, of course, is voter repression. If there's anything that weakens democracy, it's stopping people from voting, especially when they're your opponents. But of course, that's not really Trump's project. That was been the Republican project for a couple of decades now, and Trump was just the kind of unintended beneficiary of that. Whoever had been the Republican candidate would have benefited from vote suppression. So this part is not really Trumpism. This is the Republican project.
Yeah, I don't think they're all that distinguishable in many respects. But I think Trump is special in that one of the features of fascism is the personal cult of the leader.
Yes.
You always had that. And Putin definitely has that, and Trump has it too. And they both have this strongman personality, and they're admired for that.
And the rallies where the followers cheer the unique qualities of their leader, that certain echoes there are unmistakable.
Right, and the cult of violence, that's another similarity. I mean, Trump is always, at those rallies urging his followers to beat up some poor schmo who happens to be there and raises a hand in protest.
To me, one of the most important things about Trump and Putin and Modi and the guy in Turkey is targeting the enemy within. This has always been a theme. We must purify our country of enemies, and those people have different skin color, different religions, different ethnicity. This is a standard feature of fascist movements everywhere, isn't it?
Yes, that's a very good point. And so you find Erdogan is, trashing the universities, coming down hard on the Kurds. You find Orban in Hungary, who is one of the prototypical figures of this, is very anti-Semitic. In Poland, the Peace and Justice Party is very proud of the pseudo-fact that Poland is one of the most ethnically homogeneous states in the world. That's just because they don't count the Ukrainians who live there. But, and so you're absolutely right. And look at Modi. I mean, look what they're doing with the Muslims now, the Muslims in India. And here in America, sure enough, we've got the whole thing with the immigrants, which they also have in many very, very, liberal welfare state countries in Europe, like Denmark, where they've become really racist.
One more question about what unites fascistic movements around the world. Is there anything about their treatment of women that we should notice?
Well, yeah, there is. And, for some reason, this illiberal democracy or fascism or whatever you want to call it always goes along with repression of women. It always goes along with a certain kind of masculinist, male urge to world domination, and women have to be put back in the kitchen. Women have to know their place. They are the adornments of warriors. It's just ridiculous. And sure enough, we see a lot of that. And it's a little late to put women back in the kitchen, since most of them are in the workforce. But you can still repress them up to a certain point. And I think we see that with the whole drive against reproductive rights, against access to birth control and abortion.
So the big question is, does anything connect all these right-wing populist movements around the world? Why is so much of this happening now?
Well, in many parts of the world, we're seeing tough economic times. There's a lot of austerity. There's a lot of unemployment. And where there isn't those things, or aren't those things, there's still the fear of them. And you're much more likely to welcome a stranger to your country when you feel he's not going to take anything away from you. Even if he isn't going to take anything away from you, you might fear that he does.
So it's austerity and unemployment that provide the preconditions for the full flowering of these racist kinds of policies. But austerity is not inevitable. Austerity is a conscious policy that's pushed by the World Bank, the IMF, the central governments. And we could have different policies in the world today. We could have, for example, what FDR did with the New Deal, massive government spending on big employment projects, public works and public goods, more and better social services. We did that in the 30s. And I believe in the 30s, the proto-fascist movements in the United States were defeated and democracy flourished.
Look, I agree that things would be much better if everybody could get together and fight against austerity and against anti-worker policies. And I hope they'll do that. And I hope Democratic politicians will fight for that.
Well, and let's just remember one more thing in conclusion here. Trump is the most unpopular president in our history. He lost the popular vote by 3 million votes. He's not doing much to win the middle and the undecideds. It seems likely now, at least, that we will vote Democrats into control of the House, possibly even the Senate in November, and we'll vote Trump out of office in 2020.
From your mouth to God's ears, John, and we may get rid of Trump, but Trumpism, I don't know. Trump has consolidated a block of voters united in their grievances and their fantasies of redress. The fundamentalist stay-home moms, the MAGA hat-wearing toughs, the Fox-addicted retirees, the hedge fund multimillionaires, and the gun nuts have found one another. Why would they retreat and go their separate ways just because they lost an election or even two? Around the world, it may be the same story. Democracy is easy to destroy and hard to repair, even if people want to do so, and it's not so clear that enough of them do.